Hey guys. All right, we are live. You are watching Up for Debate. This is a weekly, almost weekly, political discussion between myself and my friend Paul. I'm Kristen. I blog at Rage Against Minivan.
And I'm Paul. I blog at Paulosophia.
And I am a Democrat.
And I am a Republican.
So Paul and I are old friends and political junkies, and we have always enjoyed a good political debate. And we have been doing these conversations for
year and a half?
Year and a half now. And really what we want to model is just a healthy discourse and civilized discussion on politics, though in this current administration we have certainly found that we are more on the same page than we used to be. So tonight we want to dive into a couple different topics. First of all, we want to talk about Russia. We want to talk about why it's important, why it matters, the backstory, what's really going on there, why people should care. Then we want to talk a little bit about Sean Spicer, the press secretary's resignation, and his new incoming person, who is Scaramucci. And then we want to talk a little bit about the latest in the Republican attempt to overturn Obamacare. But let's dive in with the Russia stuff. So we talked earlier this week about the fact that we really want to talk about, like, you know, for people who are a little confused on the ins and outs, because it's complex, it's nuanced, it kind of changes day to day. We want to give kind of a bird's eye view of what this whole Russia fiasco is about.
Right. And it's confusing, and part of what our vision is to make this stuff just more intuitive. Like, we don't want it to be complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated. You know, there's either something going on or there's not. And really that's the bottom line. But the fact is there is something going on.
Right.
And I don't know, like, a couple things that I think are really important. Donald Trump keeps coming out and saying it's the Democrats that are doing this.
It's a witch hunt.
It's a witch hunt. That's the word he loves. He's good at branding things. So he's branded this a witch hunt. It's a phrase that Richard Nixon used as well. But there are 3 committees investigating this.
Well, let's back all the way up.
Yeah.
What are they investigating?
Yeah, so backing all the way up.
And there are 2 people under investigation, Trump and his son-in-law, correct?
Well, I mean, there are more than even that.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are more than even that. But, I mean, I think the first thing I need to say as a Republican is that Republicans like me that are in the House and in the Senate, and even Robert Mueller, who's a Republican, want to get to the bottom of what happened because it's a fact. 17 intelligence agencies concluded without any question that Russia tried to mess around with our elections to get Donald Trump elected. And so...
Well, okay, but to play devil's advocate, Trump can't help it if Russia messed with it.
Right. Trump can't help it if Russia messed with it.
Right.
If Trump didn't help them.
Okay, so what we're really looking at is whether or not Trump helped Russia mess with our elections, which would be an obstruction of justice.
Yeah, I mean, it would be...
and it would be colluding with...
a foreign power, which
known
you
enemy.
can't do that. It's kind of like treason. And so... but I think the most important thing... someone today on Facebook told me... I put out some comment, and we would love your comments, by the way. But this person said, basically, I think this is a complete waste of time and waste of money. And the problem I have as a Republican with that, and I'm a pretty moderate guy, so if this was happening to a Democrat or a Republican, I would be saying, wait, we need to figure out if this really happened.
Right.
Like, if we have some country like Russia that's able to hack into our system, whether it gets a Democrat or a Republican elected, that's a problem.
Right.
And we need to find out what the heck's going on. This individual just said, it's not a big deal, just sweep it under the rug, which is something I don't understand.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate again. So let's say that we find there was collusion. Okay, then what? Is he impeached?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they find hard evidence, I mean, really it just becomes, again, trying to keep it simple. So the biggest problem right now is that Trump has a really high approval rating with hardcore Republicans.
He does.
Yes. So all of these senators and all of these House members back home in their districts, Trump still has like an 80% approval rating. That's one of the reasons why these senators and these congressmen aren't just coming out and saying impeach Trump, because they want to stay in power. They want to be reelected.
Yeah.
And so it was exactly the same with Watergate.
Right.
It took, in fact, at the time Nixon was being impeached, the impeachment proceedings were happening in the Senate. Something like 60% of Republicans still didn't want him to be impeached. So there's like this party loyalty thing going on.
You know, and I think when I look at the whole thing, I mean, here's my concern. I am pro-justice. I want things to be brought to light. I want things to be just. I don't like the idea of collusion and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm worried that a lot of Democrats are concerned about that justice, and we think, and someone left a comment on one of your posts to this effect, we falsely think that when we finally get this silver bullet of proof of collusion, that all of the Republicans will suddenly be like, you guys are right, he shouldn't be in power. And so we're like almost banking on that, and we are spending time, money, energy, resources on trying to prove this collusion, when if it doesn't result in impeachment, if we don't have hard evidence that results in impeachment, it could be chasing our tails. Because
as a Democrat,
because I think they think like we do. Democrats tend to want justice, but I think the Republicans are kind of like, we don't really care. We still like him. He's still a good old boy, or whatever the thing is that has allowed them to kind of pull the wool over their eyes. But I think we all think that this is a silver bullet, and I'm concerned we're going to get through this entire process, and there may not be evidence for impeachment, and so it was just like a big exercise in futility. I don't know. Man,
if that's the case, I am moving to Canada.
I'm being super cynical.
Greece or something, because it's I am a patriot. Like, I love this country, and I love. It hasn't been perfect. I'm not saying that at all. But I buy into the idea of free enterprise and just freedom of speech and freedom of worship and freedom to express. Like, I love the idea of America. And if we've come to a place where we're so polarized and we're so pro-party, whichever party we might be, that we would allow the effing Russians to get Trump elected, because they wanted Trump. They hated Hillary because she was tough as nails on them. Like, I don't want to be part of that country.
Okay, but let me ask this. This is what we have to consider. To be totally, completely honest, if we were in another election and Russia stood to benefit us, and Russia stood and could keep Trump from becoming president, would you maybe be like, okay, it's for the betterment? Like maybe Republicans really think that the ends justify the means. You know, I really think, I mean, just being honest,
rocking my world.
We're both saying this, that like we believe in justice.
Rick Alba, it's your fault. I never thought of that before.
Well, we're both saying we believe in justice. We believe, but at the same time, if there was some lacking in integrity way to get Trump out of office, I would probably be like, we'll just take it. Okay, we'll take it, because he's so horrible.
I'd pull the trigger.
Right? So I think that's where Republicans are standing. They think that the government, I think they're totally wrong in their thinking, but their perspective is that the government was so far gone and Hillary was such a horrible option that even if Russia helped get him there, they're kind of okay with it because that's how bad we needed Trump. That's what they think.
You're rocking my world, and I had never thought. Excuse me, I'd never thought about this. I'd never thought that, yeah, sure, maybe Russia helped, but it got us our guy, and ultimately...
I don't think they care.
It didn't get us Hillary, because she and Satan and Charles Manson and the Night Stalker and Hitler are all the same thing, and so, yeah, good. Russia, whatever. Russia, Shmrussia. Yeah, but what's weird as a Republican is we have been tough on Russia. I'm a Reagan guy, man, and we were like tough on Russia.
Yeah,
like the Russians.
We all grew up in the Cold War,
right?
Or at least we did.
Yeah, exactly. And so
maybe not all of our watchers.
That part of me is bamboozled and flummoxed and all those words as to why my patriotism is ultimately for the protection of our system, not... Like, my idea of patriotism is that we are America and no one messes with our elections regardless of who's coming to power. But your point is that's not where the Republican Party might be.
It may not be where I think they think the ends justify the means. But hey, I want to back up because we wanted to give some facts. So let's back up in the timeline. Let's talk about what was happening in the election where this collusion purportedly started. We have a number of people in Trump's circle who have been accused of meeting with Russians, who have said they didn't meet with Russians, and then we find out that they did.
Yeah.
That's true of Jeff Sessions, and that has been found to be true of his son-in-law, Tony Kushner? Is that how you say his last name? Jared Kushner.
Trump's son-in-law.
Tony
Ivanka's
Kushner
husband.
Is a playwright. Anyway.
Of course, you would mix those up. I wouldn't.
He wrote Angels in America. It's a fantastic play.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that this keeps kind of coming up, and then we're left with this sort of weird discussion of like what constitutes a meeting. So Jeff was like, "No, I didn't meet with anyone." Jeff Sessions, and then he got called out, and then he was like, "Well, I did meet with them, but it was like not really a meeting." And then really, that's really what Jared kind of said in his statement as well.
Right.
Well, yes, we did talk in a hallway, I think, or, it wasn't an official meeting and we weren't discussing, so what's so tough about this is we're getting down to what's the definition of a meeting, what is actually breaking the rules. It's all a little splitting hairs at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's just a cover-up. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a cover-up. It's a total cover-up. I mean, these people, they're all lawyered up now.
Yeah.
They're all saying whatever minimal, they're presenting minimal amounts of information. We know there's something there. This investigative committee, the Senate, the House are having to subpoena people, and the Trump administration is doing everything they can in their power to not give information. And then you have Trump calling it a witch hunt.
Yeah.
It's very much like Watergate.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't disagree.
And if the Trump administration, and I was reading today, somebody said, just come clean. Just tell us what happened. But I think the issue is money. And this is an interesting thing that happened this week. Trump floated the idea in a New York Times. He gave an interview to the New York Times, which he calls fake news. That's interesting. So when the New York Times was printing what Trump said, is that considered fake news? That's another question. But someone said, isn't patriotism weird, though? Yeah, we have to go back to that. But the point is that Trump is doing everything he can to push this thing away, and if he wanted to, he could just say, all right, come in. But Mueller basically is looking at the money trail now, which means Trump's tax returns, and Trump said in that interview, if he comes after our finances, I will fire him. And remember the thing with Trump's tax returns? We know those tax returns are chock full of deals with Russia, Russian deals.
Of course they are.
And Trump's been doing deals in Russia for a long time.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe this, you're ignorant and you don't read.
It's an observable fact.
It's an observable fact. I just want to say, Elizabeth, thank you for that comment. And I get your point on how patriotism is weird. And when I say patriotism, I do not mean nationalism. Mm-hmm. So which is
an important distinction.
Yes. And what I mean is that if I lived in Denmark, there would be certain essences of my nation's government that I would be loyal to, in the same way I'd be loyal to the UCLA Bruins. I went to UCLA. So there's a certain normative sense of being for your team.
Right.
But I don't ever take it to the point of nationalism.
Meaning
over God, over my values, over
other
truth,
countries,
over
other
countries.
well-being of other people.
So by patriotism, I just say the best of America.
Yeah.
The fact that we produced a lot of art in the last 200 years because of the kind of government that we have. And I think that's really cool. That's what I mean by patriotism.
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's back up a little bit again and talk about, if we're going to look at historically, how did Michael Flynn factor into this whole Russia kerfuffle that we are now in?
Yeah, Michael Flynn, it's almost like his name is diminishing as names like Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort and Donald Trump Jr. arise, but he was the first to resign. And apparently he had really hard information
Right.
on what we don't know, but what we think.
Yes.
Which is that there was some kind of deal going on.
Yeah.
And again, trying to keep it really simple, how could Russia help Trump win? It's really easy. Hack into John Podesta, he was the head of the DNC, hack into his emails and release the emails about how Hillary basically gave it to Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Right? That made Hillary look really bad.
Really bad.
It wasn't a good thing that Hillary's people did, but they did it. And it made her look bad. So they hacked in, they got those emails, they gave them to WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
And WikiLeaks threw them out into the American press. And the more serious thing that some people are thinking happened is that, you know, this whole thing with fake news, there were apparently stories that were absolutely 100% fabricated. Do you remember some of those? Like Hillary in a pizza parlor?
Yeah, totally.
I don't remember what they were.
Yeah.
But that someone in the Trump campaign gave the Russians the precincts that Trump had to win in the swing states.
Right.
So that the Russians could cram those fake
Right.
Facebook videos into those precincts. And that's what's being looked at right now.
Right, and specifically the fact that Jared Kushner during the election was over their digital strategies. And so what they are accusing him of is having shared with the Russians their learnings on the Facebook algorithms and all the social media intel on how the Russians could really mess with Hillary, which is a really big deal because that is collusion.
Yeah.
I mean, we can argue over meetings and what constitutes a meeting all day, but if you've given intel to a foreign nation to help swing an election and you're a part of the, you know, that party, that's pretty rough. You know, it's interesting too, Trump has not really distanced himself from his son-in-law, and I wondered if that would happen because that is the thing that Trump does.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as somebody starts
Jeff
to
Sessions
get,
today.
yeah,
What is he saying about
he's
Jeff?
like,
yeah, I'm done with this guy.
yeah. So I'm curious to watch how this all goes down, and if there comes a point where he just distances himself.
Yeah.
Plays dumb.
And I think the point is there is a lot of really shady stuff. And that's how these things work. You never come out and find the gun with smoke coming out of it. Ever. That never happens.
Right.
It never happens in the OJ case. It never happens in the Charles Manson case. It never happens in any proceeding. That's why we have investigations. And so when people go on Facebook today and say, I think we need to drop it, I kind of think, why? We want to know, and maybe there will be nothing proven.
Yeah.
But we will prove to the world that we have a system.
Right.
We have a system that cares about these things.
Well, and hopefully this is setting a precedent for future, you know, would-be presidents that they can't behave like this, that there is some consequence to this kind of behavior. Because, you know, that's what I get a little scared of, too, is like, we've never seen anything like Trump. But what if this is how shit goes down from here on out? You know what I mean?
It's a huge worry.
I mean, we've got what's-his-face running for, oh gosh, who is it? I can't think of it.
Kid Rock.
Yeah, Kid Rock running for governor, I think.
But wasn't there some like bodybuilder wrestler guy that won somewhere?
Yeah.
In Minnesota.
Yeah, but he seemed a little more like actually interested.
We had Arnold.
Yeah.
I don't know who Kid Rock is. Is he not as legit?
Oh, he's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's totally crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's just like politics could just become the Wild West if people with a large platform see this going down and think, I can use Twitter to win an election. I can use a foreign government to help me win. And I can do it with impunity. You know, it's a little bit scary.
You know what's interesting is how all great civilizations fall.
Yeah.
It's scary, but we think, we think we're such a new country. We're one of the oldest countries.
Way to bring it down.
Sorry, but,
It's
we
true.
do think that. Like Pan American Airlines and Enron and,
Yeah.
the Soviet Union, these things never failed. Rome.
Yeah.
And they come crashing down. And again, I'm not a fatalist or some kind of conspiracy theorist, but when you said that right there, I thought, shoot. Like,
Well, I'm not a fatalist either, but I will say if something was going to take our country down, I think it's the alt-right, and I think it could be Trump. You know? I do. I mean, I think we all have to be wise in the current climate.
yeah. one thing that strikes me is so weird, and if you are the most ardent right-winger out there, I want you to just listen here. Why has Trump never, ever criticized Russia?
Yeah, right. He criticizes everybody.
England, Germany, Japan,
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Kentucky Fried Chicken,
Yeah.
China, our best allies in NATO.
Hamilton, the musical. He criticizes everybody.
And our NATO partners, NATO itself.
Yeah.
And even to this day, today, his new Scaramouche whatever guy said that Trump was on Air Force One, called the new press director of communications and said, well, I'm not really sure it's Russia. And what is his infatuation? And you have to think
it's money.
You have to think Russia has something on him.
I don't know. I don't know if it's that. I think it is financial interest. I think at the end of the day, he's looking out for his financial interest. And I think he stands to benefit from staying very friendly with Russia.
Or does Russia have his tax returns? Which that was something at one point that people thought they had his tax returns. And if you don't, if you mess with us, we're going to release your tax returns.
Could be. Which
could be scandalous.
It would be scandalous, but it would not be presidency ending. And I don't know that this guy cares that much about a scandal. I don't think he has a ton of shame.
He is a scandal.
Yeah, like he's a walking scandal. He doesn't care. I don't think he had his panties in a wad when like that stuff he said about women was released. I think he's just... I think he's a narcissist, and what narcissists do is they create a narrative in their own mind that they completely believe that excuses their behavior, which is why narcissists never change. So, whatever happens, he tells himself, no, this is what happened, and he believes it, and therefore everyone else is stupid. I mean,
and he tweets it to those 30% of Americans that agree with whatever he does.
So I think whatever would be released about Trump, he would just, at the end of the day, say some narrative, believe some narrative, and not be embarrassed. I don't think he's a guy that can be embarrassed. I don't know.
It's such a departure from... I saw something the other day where Scaramucci? I'm Italian.
How are you struggling with the Italian name?
Scaramucci.
But
he was on some... there was some Obama question, and Scaramucci asked Obama a question. It was interesting because I guess Scaramucci went to Harvard Law. And he said, hey, remember me? And Obama said, hey, yeah, man, you did real well. And then Scaramucci asked Obama about how Washington is clamping down on Wall Street. And President Obama, who I have deep respect for, I didn't vote for him, but I have deep respect for him as a human being and as a thinker and as a good man. He basically said, dude, like when people working on Wall Street are making $1 billion a year and a lot of people can't even put gas in their car.
Yeah.
It's really weird for me to hear you say that we're like clamping down on you.
Yeah.
And it was much better than that, but it was brilliantly articulated. Mm-hmm. And that's why even to my Republican friends out there, many of you who struggle financially, we've just gotten to a place where people they have like plugs in their ears.
Yeah.
And my Republican friends don't want to hear anything about raising taxes so that they don't have to pay so much money for insurance or something like that. That's just weird to me. It's not really common sense.
It's not. All right, should we depart from the Russia thing and talk about Scaramucci and Spicer?
Sure.
I mean, so, Spicer, if you haven't been watching, or maybe if you watch SNL instead, Sean Spicer, Spacey has been the press secretary since Trump took office, right? Mm-hmm. And, he has been a polarizing figure. He, on the one hand, has done Trump a lot of favors in kind of buying the narratives and selling the bullshit that Trump gives him. He has gotten a ton of criticism. He's been made fun of relentlessly on SNL. If you've not seen Melissa McCarthy
please do.
Imitating him on SNL, it's so worth watching. It's hysterical.
When we're finished.
But, he is, at the same time, he's a messy guy. He's unpolished. He's, not good on camera. He's overweight. His suits are bad. And Trump has even been critical of those things. So, he's not I mean, Trump is a showman. He's an entertainment guy, and Sean was, you know, an unlikely candidate.
He's more of like a boring establishment kind of guy.
Just old middle-aged white guy, angry white guy. Total old establishment. And I don't think he really resonated with anybody.
No, but the thing with him is it's just the impossible task. Like, how would you like to be the spokesman for Donald Trump?
Right. It was the impossible task, and he did rise to the occasion of whatever that was. I mean, he definitely, like, gave the talking points and bought. I mean, he was selling. He was shilling for Trump. So anyway, I mean, very curiously, he resigns this week. And then Trump puts in his place Scaramucci.
Yeah, because he put Scaramucci in.
Well, right.
Yeah.
That's true. The order is he puts Scaramucci in, and then
Spicer says, I'm done.
And then we're all left wondering, you know, what happened first. And but I'm going to share really quickly. I know you've been trying to elevate our discourse by talking historically about Russia.
Please
and I'm going to read some funny tweets.
Nice.
But Scaramucci...
It's complimentary.
As you know, he kind of came into the public spotlight. Some people found a tweet that he wrote in 2012 in which he quoted Mark Twain with the following quote: "Dance like no one is watching, sing like no one is listening, love like you've never been hurt, and live like it's heaven on earth. Mark Twain." So, you know, Mark Twain did not write that. And so he has been raked over the coals by Twitter with made-up quotes. So here are a few of them. "Cash me outside, how about that? Ralph Waldo Emerson." "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Kesha." Let's see, what are some other funny ones? "Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, William Carlos Williams."
Oh my gosh.
"Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, Vincent Van Gogh." "Welcome to the jungle, we got fun and games, Upton Sinclair." So, I don't know, I enjoyed that very much this week on Twitter, watching people say crazy quotes and attribute them to legitimate authors. But yeah, he's the new guy, and I get, and what's her face?
Huckabee.
Mary?
Sarah Huckabee.
Sarah Huckabee, who is Mike Huckabee's daughter. Yeah, who, again, a very odd choice. You know, not in line with the showman kind of, you know, I mean, if you were casting, she would not be someone you'd cast. You know, she's not great on camera. She doesn't come off, I think she comes off as kind of defensive. But I don't know who you get for that job. I don't know.
Well, I think the point, and I think this Facebook message from somebody today saying, "I don't really care." I mean, I think that's what I want to ask everyone listening. Mm-hmm. Because it seems to me that there is maybe about a 30% of our population in our country today that ultimately supports Trump. For whatever reason. They like Trump, they're Republicans, they want to drain the swamp, they're tired of the system, they don't have a job, whatever. Yeah. And then there's this other constituency, which is growing, that is just laughing and mourning and saying, this is not really happening right now. We didn't just hire a hedge fund manager with slick back hair and one of Trump's money guys, like, to be the communications dude.
Yeah.
And that's where and maybe I'm an elitist, but I have a huge amount of respect for the guild, the tradition of politics, the tradition of, call it establishment, but the people with decorum like George H.W. Bush and Mitt Romney and John McCain and Ronald Reagan and that list goes on. And I just don't think that putting a bunch of greasy-haired New York hedge fund managers in control is going to make America great again.
No.
I think those guys are thugs. They know how to manipulate a bottom line, but do they know how to be decent people?
It's the opposite of draining the swamp.
It is, and apparently draining the swamp is now draining the sewer.
Yeah.
That was upgraded today.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think it's really sad. Although I will say, we're talking about Russia, and I know that is on a lot of people's minds, and it does matter to me. I think it's a big deal. But what matters more to me is the healthcare bill and this potential of Obamacare being overturned without a reasonable option that affords people coverage. I mean, that is heavy on my heart. I mean, personally, because I am a beneficiary of the Affordable Care Act, that is how I insure myself and my family. But more so concerned about just the people for whom it would just be devastating to their lives. You know, people who are living with illnesses, who would then, if they repeal it with nothing else in place, there are, chronically ill people who would lose coverage and potentially lose life-saving treatment. So it's really scary. So the latest on that is, the Senate put a bill forth. And I mean, to quote Hamilton, they don't have the vote. And that was revealed last week. The vote was delayed because Senator McCain was ill. And we have heard that he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, I believe, cancerous, which is very sad. My heart goes out to them. I have met his wife, and she's a very lovely person, and my thoughts and prayers are with them. But, I don't think it's going to pass. I hope it's not going to pass.
And I'm a Republican, and I hope to God it doesn't pass. And
Why? Why do you hope
I'm much more of a
pass?
Susan Collins kind of Republican,
Yeah.
and that just start visualizing children and teenagers and 20-somethings who are sick, not being able to get health coverage, and sitting at home.
Yeah.
They don't have the money in the bank.
Totally.
Like, I just think we have a moral obligation as a country.
Yeah.
And the CBO says 25, 26, 27 million people.
Yeah.
And, my Republican evangelical friends love to talk about being pro-life, but it seems to be pro-fetus life.
Yeah.
Not pro-life. Like, once you're alive, you're on your own. And so it's a remarkably complicated issue, but I hope that the Susan Collinses and the John McCains and what I would call common sense Republicans out there do everything that they can to ensure that, don't repeal.
Yeah.
Just come back, in the fall and do everything you can to come up with something better. This seems like a racist act.
Why does it seem racist to you?
Whatever we have to do to make the black guy that created it lose.
Yeah. I hear you on that. Yeah,
Obama created it.
Yeah.
I don't know the details, but we need to get rid of that
Right.
sucker.
Yeah.
And that might seem extreme to many of you, but that's how I feel about it.
Well, and I think that there is this perception that Obamacare ruined everything, that, that people are paying these absurd premiums because of Obamacare. You were paying absurd premiums before Affordable Care
my
Act.
God,
Do you
I
guys
remember.
not remember that? Like,
Oh my God.
We've always all been paying absurd premiums. And here's the thing that really bothers me too. If you guys remember, the Affordable Care Act was after much negotiation. And many of the things in the Affordable Care Act that were put into place that people are now criticizing were concessions to Republicans. I mean, if you recall, Obama wanted a nationalized healthcare system. And what we got was like a very, very sad, concession. But this did not make your health premiums go up. Greed made your health premiums go up. That's the bottom line. And I think that there is much further refinement that needs to happen in that whole system.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what people are fighting for. That's what confuses
I don't know
me.
if
Mitt
people-
Romney was the governor
yeah.
of Massachusetts. He made a statewide, nationalized, whatever you want to call it, healthcare system. Everyone had healthcare.
Yeah.
He was a Republican. Many of you who are Republicans can't afford your health insurance. Why not? You already believe in socialism because you send your kids to public schools. You go to the DMV, right? You believe in the police and the military. And so you already kind of like some parts of socialism.
Yeah.
Why not just bite the bullet and say, yeah, it'd be nice to just be covered. And then we move on from it. But there's this, again, it's just this, I don't even think it's thoughtful. It's just this idea that my party, doesn't want, even though overturning Roe versus Wade wouldn't solve anything, I want to overturn Roe versus Wade.
Well, but on the abortion topic, you know, that is one of the things that the Senate bill slipped in was the defunding of Planned Parenthood. And so I think there are many people who are maybe even on the fence on why there's a need to repeal Obamacare, but they slipped in the defunding of Planned Parenthood, and then all of the, you know, evangelicals who are staunchly pro-life are like, yes, because that's, you know, it's like a buy one, get one free. We're going to repeal this thing, and we're going to defund Planned Parenthood, who people see as, you know, abortion, even though Planned Parenthood does way more and offers maternity care to millions of underprivileged women. Yeah. So
I think it just comes down to this idea of binary, which might be weird to some people, but it's just the way our computers work. They're either ones or zeros.
Yeah.
And we live in a culture where it is just binary.
Yeah.
Black and white, yes or no, 1 or 0, and, you know, repeal or not.
Yeah.
And if we repeal, we win.
Yeah.
And if we don't repeal, we lose.
Yeah, I agree.
And if we overturn Roe versus Wade, we win.
Right.
And if we don't, we lose.
Right.
And that's the way a lot of you guys are geared. And the sad reality in your own life is that your relationship with your children, your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your significant others, your relationship with your job, your boss, life is gray.
Yeah.
It's messy, it's nuanced, but we live in a political system right now where everything is, especially from Donald Trump. Listen to him in his 5-word sentences. It's good or bad, win or lose, black or white,
very simplistic,
repeal or not, and that's what's screwing people up.
I agree.
Things are way more nuanced.
I totally agree. All right, is that it for this week?
Yeah, there's so much more, but we're not going to indulge in that now.
Well, thanks for tuning in. We are in the works on turning this into a podcast, so if that is of interest to you, we hope that you will follow along and then subscribe once we have that live. We are still taking submissions for a new name for
we
this
need a new
discussion.
name. Come on.
We're not in love with Up for Debate. We want something spicy
because we
and
never
fun.
debate.
I know, and we don't actually debate. But we want something that describes what we do, that it's a civil debate, that, you know, we want to be accessible, we want to be civil. So if you guys have any ideas for us, we are all ears. Link them up in the comments. And, of course, we always want to hear your thoughts, your concerns, your debate,
right?
anything you want to add. All right. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.